Now, let's try to understand one of the most interesting graphs of the current scenario, the spatial graphs. Space, wherein you can create or upload your own geographical maps, and based on the geographical map, you can work out with the latitude and the longitude, and corresponding to the latitude and the longitude of the data, a graph can be plotted. Today, because of very much of advancement happening in with the GIS, the geographic information systems, lot of data is captured pertaining to different geographies. Probably if you look at the browsing behavior in a typical website analysis, you could see, based on the browsing behavior or based on the IP address location, the geographic location of the server is being captured. And based on that, if you look at the typical Google Analytics that is provided for any website, you could very clearly make out how many customers are visiting the website from what location, and that too it is coming out in a graphical format of the entire set of maps. And those set of map based representation of the data, which takes into consideration the latitude and the longitude of the geographic location and does the plotting of the data, is getting classified under the heading of spatial graphs. So probably from a utility perspective, we can talk too much about the usage of the geographical based graphs, because I can really target, I can do a geo targeting. I can try to understand which product is sold in which geography, what kind of geographical dependencies are there between the products. I can very clearly visualize by looking at the plot of the data in a map kind of a format. From which geography I am getting majority of my customers, right? So it's a very important tool today, wherein with the availability of the spatial information, there are so many tools which are publishing the spatial information. And probably you could look at the Google Earth or Google Maps, which are providing the spatial related information for various activities, which means I can very comfortably do an analytics based on the spatial information that is available. So I can really work on geographical information pertaining to customers, products, and to the next few years, there would be an enormous or extreme development that is going to come in the area of geographical information system. So what we will try to do is, we'll try one data set where we might have captured the latitude and the longitude of a particular location, and based on that location we'll try to do a simple graph plotting, and we can do some kind of analysis associated with it, right? All right, so let me open a data. Okay, here I have a simple data set which talks about the latitude location, right? And negative, okay, here the latitude that is given by any typical system. The way we look at is, latitude generally are defined north and south. North is represented with a positive sign and south is represented with a negative sign. And we see the latitude values will lie between minus 90 degrees to plus 90 degrees. Similarly, with respect to longitude, the east side is represent east and west are the longitudes. The east is represented with a positive sign and west is with a negative sign. Just like a two-dimensional graph, this becomes the east, which is represented with a positive sign, west is represented with a negative. North is represented with a positive, south is represented with a negative. The north and south are associated with the latitudes, east and west are associated with the longitudes. Corresponding to these latitudes and longitudes, I can very well do the plotting of my location. Now, if you see here, a minus 5.45 degrees latitude and 60.43 degrees longitude. In that location, the sales that were done were to the extent of 16,707, right? And what it is being said is the product type that is being sold there is zero. Similarly, in a different location, the sales are 17,122 for a product type of 0. So there are a few places where product type 0 is there and a few locations where a product type 1 is there. Now this entire thing, I want to take it into a geographical map. Right? I want to have a map which takes the latitude and longitude and plots it on a world map. I want a world map to be displayed, and corresponding to that world map, I want these locations to be plotted. Okay, let's do it step by step. Right, the first thing, I'll go towards graphs, template builder. The first few things which I'll take is with the latitude and the longitude. What is that I can plot? Now initially I am starting off with the coordinates on a reference map. I create a reference map, and based on that reference map I can put the coordinates of the latitude and the longitude there. So initially let me reset everything. Then again I am taking the latitude and the longitude, for which I am selecting the coordinates using these two. I am referring to the coordinates of a reference map. Now here for the details, okay, as a longitude I have to point to the longitude field, and latitude I have to point to the latitude field. So initially I'll just point these two. Right, when I'm pointing these two only, the first graph that I'm getting, if you see here, a world map is being plotted, and in that world map different circles are showing our data points. Right, different circles are showing our data points. Probably if you double click on each one of them, you could see that these are the different locations which are there in our data. A few of them are in different countries, and a few of them look like they are in the oceans. Right, probably some kind of a dummy data being taken, so that's where you could see a lot of data points are present in the ocean itself, whereas if you capture the accurate kind of a data, it might much be better. Probably just to showcase that, what I would see is one of the data points, I'll change it, let's say to a country like India. So I'll put 20 as the latitude. Right, 20 as the latitude, and probably 80 as or 78 as the longitude, just to showcase. Right, so let me just try out whether this number comes closer to India or not. Now I could see there is an entry that has come out here which is corresponding to India. Right, this if I just see, this is the entry that is corresponding to India. Earlier this entry was not there, now it is coming, which means the location of the entire geography has been captured out here. But now there are two, three things for me to look at in this graph. Now it is not telling me anything. Okay, these are the locations where my sales have happened. Nothing more than that. It is not showing me anything else. But from my data, I have different amount of sales in different locations. Right? I have different amount of sales in different locations, and just to be comfortable, this data I'll put probably slightly longer, slightly bigger, so that we can see a difference. Here, let's say it's a big number of sales that has occurred. Now I want to differentiate based on the sales. Right? I want the graph, I want these circles not to be very simple in nature. I want them to represent the size. Now this is where I can do the necessary modifications to my data. Now that I have chosen that these are the coordinates kind of stuff and this is the map, what I want to do is the size. These are the optional aesthetics. If I want to differentiate on color, I can do that. If I want to put a shape, I can do that. If I want to differentiate on the size, now this time I want to differentiate on the size, and that differentiation I want to do based on sale. So which means the larger is the sales, I want the size of this should be larger. Now if you simply look at that, okay, now you see a different circles that are coming out. I could clearly see that this circle is much bigger compared to many other circles, because size wise this is a very big one, whereas all others are gradually going down, and that is what you could see in the data set. Now here the advantage that I get is, probably let me change my data a little bit, again remove this 2 from here, so that this data is also more or less in line with the other location. Now what will happen is the same exercise whatever we are doing, the size of all the graphs is increased. At least now you see different sizes for different graphs. So some of them are looking much bigger here, right? Probably if I drag it much more bigger, I could see slightly bigger differences. Now here I could see these are the bigger ones, whereas all these are slightly smaller in nature and these are somewhat moderate. This one here. Now probably I want to differentiate based on color, right? Because everyone in a black may not be giving me that kind of a right picture. So which means the same thing I am improvising. By even the color also I am putting it based on the sales itself, both the size as well as the color. Now you could see the colorful chart coming in front of us. So the red ones are directly showing that these are the locations where the sales are much higher. So probably something very close to United Kingdom, the sales are much higher. A little bit close towards the Mexico here, the sales are higher. And a few in this Pacific Ocean, I could see a few more bigger numbers. Similarly, the 40s are being shown with the orange colored, and probably there are a couple of places which are close to zero which are being shown with a blue color, right? Now this could be the kind of representation that I could do, but here one more thing comes up. Probably I would like to differentiate the shape as well. Let's say now in my data set, apart from sales, I also have the product type. There are two products that I am selling, product 0 and product 1. Even I want that to be represented as a part of my graphical representation. Now this is where a few more modifications come out. I can very well get into the shape. I'll have a different shape based on the product type. So for product type 0, there will be a different shape. For product type 1, there will be a different shape. Right? And if that's the case, probably I can very well go ahead with another slightly different graph. You could clearly see now the square represents product 1, whereas the circle represents product 0. Now in the United Kingdom, I can say that it is the product 1 that is sold heavily, probably moderately in North America, and a few minor things towards Australia and towards the end of South America, and probably towards the Indian Ocean, wherein the product 1 is more and more prevalent, a little bit towards the east coast of United States, a little bit towards again the east coast of South America, very closer towards very closer towards this Peru kind of a location. So you could clearly see that these are the different things. Probably if I have a better graph which has the complete country-wise breakup, it looks much more appropriate in terms of the representation for me. So this way, graphically, I can very well understand and appreciate the relationship between the various attributes of my product, of my sales, of my customer, so that I can do a geographic based targeting and positioning for my products. And of course, to make things much more appropriate, I can even go with the default titles, or I can give my own titles, right? So you can very well write out the title, subtitle, and the footnotes. And here also the labels. I can very well see these are the very basic alterations, but the major thing that comes out is something like this. Now, one more way to target. Okay, let me go back to my data set again. Now, when I am selecting these two, and along with that, if I am selecting the product type, three of them, I could directly get into the coordinates on a chloroplet of count. So I can see if there are multiple data points, I can actually do the counting. Probably let me try slightly modifying the data. Right, what I'll do is, let's say these three data points, just for understanding, these three data points I'll repeat. Right, the three data points I'm actually repeating, saying that this activity has happened multiple times. I'm looking more from the counting perspective. Now, if I am taking even that into consideration, product type, I can actually go with the coordinates. I'll take the coordinates on a chloroplet of the counts kind of a data. Now, when I'm doing that kind of a chart, you could see the difference now. Three locations. Okay, so now the graph is typically plotted with these values. But now, what I can, so this is counting only the zeros. And what I can very well do in this is, the data key is the product key. Now I can show a different color based on the product type. Product type is the data key for me. So I can do a separation of the color. Again, I can do it on the sales. Shape, I can do it on the product type. Size, I can still do it on the sales. Now you could see, see typically on the count. So the mean sales between this and this you are seeing with a green color. Again, the light fading of the green color which we have seen even in the earlier case. Circles are per product 0. One is, squares are per product 1. But here it is trying to do the counting for that typical product 0, right? Or probably what we can try looking at is, okay, here for this data this may not be applicable, right? So that's where I can rely heavily on the coordinates on the reference map itself for this kind of a data, right? If required, I can very well put out even this animation part along with the color, the shape, and the sails. Now you could see this. Just 1 second. Yeah. All right. So this is coming out to 0 to 10,000. Yeah, let me cut this again. Now here if I'm looking at, yeah, if I'm getting into the explore mode, I can actually make it more and more interactive. So here you could see I can run it like a video, right? You could see the different locations. If you stop, let's say I want to see whichever are the ones. See what I have done within the graph. Within the graph, I have actually called for animation based on sales. If I say I want to do the animation based on the product type, so what will happen is when I click on it, I will get two different kinds of graphs. Okay, first it is showing me only the circles, and even if I start exploring it, I could see, okay, this is for circles, and then when I do the next, this is showing only for product 1, which is the squares. So only two of them it is showing differently. But at the same time, if I conduct this for, instead of product type, I say the animation is on the sales. Now you see something different. You click on it and go to that explore mode. You will see initially 0 to 10,000. But Next, if you say, okay, it shows from 10,000 to 20,000. So these are the ones. Then again, from 20 to 30, from 20 to 30, this is going to be the case. Probably you can always shift it. Okay, if I want to see between 45 and 50, how many of them are there? Okay, only these are the 4-5 countries between 45 to 50. And probably I want to be a bit more, 46 to 50, only these are there. And probably if I want to get them to the some other side, 40 to 45. So I can very comfortably assess on an interactive mode the geographic locations, and probably I can very well take a subset of that entire graph also by referring back to the interactive locations in the graph. So that's how the spatial map can really help us in terms of bringing out lot of analytics on the data, and if required, what I can also do is I can change the graph or change the map as well. Here there are a few maps that are by default loaded, but you can very well load your own data file, map file as well. But yes, okay, if I am getting with this graph, world regions graph, so the same thing will be updated in the regions, countries based. I'll get the entire set of regions. So which can tell me which country is typically having what kind of sales in which country wise within the continent, the whole breakup of the graph is occurring, right?